Welcome to All Things Financial with Jack Driscoll. Each week, Jack takes on all things you thought were hard to understand about your finances and makes it fun, easy, but most of all interesting. From insurance to the best way to save your money and squeeze the most out of the dollars you put aside for your rainy day. And now, you have a friend in the money business. Here's your host, Jack Driscoll.
Welcome back again, everyone, to another edition of All Things Financial. As you know, we are doing a series on long-term care planning for nursing homes, what to do if a parent or a spouse needs to go into a nursing home, and how it impacts your finances. Now, we went through a couple stages already, the do nothing plan and the I'll let my kids take care of me plan. And now we're at stage 3, which is the I'll just spend down all my money plan. Now, that's in 2 parts, and I'll deal with the first part, which was ignore the issue until it happens, and then we'll just use our own money. And that's what I'll talk about today. The other spend down my own money plan is Medicaid and VA planning. That's going to be in the next part of my series. So that'll be the next stage. But the first stage is we've done nothing, we've done no advanced planning, and if I go into a nursing home, I'll just have to have my money pay for those fees. So let's talk about that. Are you single or are you married? Becomes the very first question, because it matters so much. If you or your parent that you're concerned about if you ever need to go into a nursing home, then you use your own resources. Boy, does it matter if you have a spouse at home. Because if you're single and need to go into a nursing home, or your parent's single and needs to go into a nursing home, if their money gets used up on them, that's a consequence. But if they're married and their money gets used up on them, that might be a far more drastic consequence, because there's still another spouse who lives at home who's healthy that needs or needed those resources to provide for their retirement security and income for their next 20 years, let's say. And it all just got wiped out due to the cost of a nursing home on the other spouse. So you can see how it matters. And some people will tell me, no, it's not all wiped out. Okay, let's talk about that. We'll stop for a minute and let's talk about that. Number 1, this is as much or more a legal area as it is a financial area and a health area. So I again clarify, I am not an attorney. I do nothing in the practice of law. I have no knowledge or information of anything in the area of law. I am a financial planner. So I only help families deal with the financial consequences of decisions or circumstances that affect them, not the legal consequences. So that's what I want, and not the health consequences, because I'm not trained for those. So when we deal with this area of spending your own money, it's as much a legal issue as it is a financial issue. So I can help illustrate some of these areas of how it impacts your finances. Well, there's a crossover, folks, because there is a law in place since 1989 called the Spousal Impoverishment Protection Act of 1989. That's a long time ago. So there are some provisions that are in force and protect spouses at home that were not in place prior to 1989. Sounds pretty important, right? Because prior to 1989, it is possible the spouse at home, which is called the non-institutionalized spouse, could have been wiped out. Had to sell the house, had to sell their cars, had to cash in all their life insurance and all their investments and savings. Today, that's not necessarily the case. So talk to an attorney to help on how does this law apply today, and will it help you in your current decision-making process? It's my understanding of the law that the way it generally works, that a house is considered an exempt asset that does not have to be cashed in and spent out. It's also my understanding the spouse at home is allowed to keep one car. It's also my understanding spouse at home is allowed to keep half of their assets, other assets, up to in excess of $100,000. So if you have $500,000 in savings, maybe 400 some thousand or a little less than that is at risk of being lost to a nursing home. But maybe at least 100,000 or more might be able to be preserved for the spouse at home. It's also my understanding that a life insurance policy with no more than around $1,500 cash value in it is allowed to be preserved. And it's my understanding that the parents or spouse or institutionalized person and non-institutionalized person are allowed to establish and prepay a burial trust account. And that, I don't know what the limits are on these. You have to talk to the attorneys. There are government limits on how much is allowed to be protected and exempt for the categories of, let's say, the custodial burial accounts. But you need to find out what they are, because you want to take advantage of laws that are in force. The other one is the spouse at home is allowed to keep a certain amount of income to sustain their lives at home. And the attorneys can tell you how much that is. It might be $1,500 a month. It might be $2,200 a month. I think it depends on the financial circumstances of each family and what the law allows to be protected. So that's the legal profession coming in to provide those solutions on the law. What I bring to you in the financial planning show is that there are potential solutions in the law, so you need to contact a competent attorney to find out what those are that might impact your finances favorably if a spouse or a parent needs to go into a nursing home. So that's what I wanted to share with you first, the financial consequences of if someone goes into a nursing home. Now let me clarify something else. I mentioned just a minute ago an example of if someone had $500,000, they might have at risk or lose somewhere around $400,000 possibly to a nursing home. But that's not really how it works. Typically the way it works is if a spouse or a parent needs to go into a nursing home, there's a financial resource assessment that needs completed when you're looking at entering a nursing home. And you look at this and it's an asset resource, and then there's an income resource. So they ask you, what are all your assets? And I'm simplifying this discussion for the sake of the radio show. And you list all of your assets. And the government may say, Medicaid, which I'll get into in future shows, is a program available through the government once you become impoverished. That shouldn't be music to your ears, folks. But the truth is, once you spend down all of your money to a certain limit, the government will begin taking over the cost, in some cases, of your nursing home. So number one is, okay, if you're going to spend down, I mean, we're on option 3, I'm just going to spend down my own money. You have some considerations that you have to be aware of. Number one, am I in the type of nursing home that's Medicaid approved? That if I do spend down to those limit, and then I say to the government, okay, you start paying, and they say, you're not in a Medicaid approved facility. And you say, oh my goodness, we were doing this on our own. We didn't get a qualified tax professional, legal professional, and financial planner like Jack Driscoll said. We tried to do it on our own. And we came to this facility, this nursing home, because it was less expensive. And you're telling us now, because it's not Medicaid eligible, that you won't pay the continuation of our costs now that we've spent down to those limits. And the government might say yes. you have to be in a Medicaid eligible facility. And if that's the case, then you might say, well, where's that? They might even give you a list through the Department of Aging of all the Medicaid eligible facilities. And you look, and lo and behold, the nursing home you're in isn't on the list. Shame on you for not getting qualified, competent, legal, and financial and tax help prior to this happening. So now you're starting from scratch all over again, panicked, because now you are out of money, except to the spousal protected resources amount if they're married, and if they're single, you're out of money, and thought you would now qualify for, and you find out these loopholes because you didn't deal with qualified professionals in advance. So now you're out looking and calling these Medicaid eligible facilities. So you're calling them up on the phone. Hey, my mom's over here. I need to move her over here. And they say, come on in, meet with us. And you go in as the kids or whatever and spouses meet with them. And they say, okay, fine. They would qualify. We're out of beds. We have a 1.5 year waiting list. And you say, oh, that won't work. They need moved now. So you go to the next one, and you go to the next one, and you go to the next one. And you begin to realize, if you wait until the time you need the care, there's a waiting list. If you don't have enough assets to be able to pay for the care for a long enough period of time, you're put on a waiting list, and you're left holding the bag. So now you're spending down through the resources that would have been qualified, or who knows what you're doing. That's why I put the radio show out, to help you see the alternatives in advance. So one of them is, if you're spending down money, the first thing, you need to get to the attorneys now, pay their fees, and ask them, if I do this, how do I position myself to be in the right place when I'm out of money? If I choose to spend it down, then how am I in the right place that Medicaid will pick up where my funds leave off? So if you're in a Medicaid eligible facility, maybe the attorneys will tell you, okay, you're in the right place, and Medicaid will continue to pay where you leave off. See? So you might be able to avoid some problems there, but you've still spent down your money. Other areas of spending down your money, or other concerns or questions are, and I'm not dealing with transferring money, Medicaid planning, I'm not dealing with any of that. I'm dealing with, you're not looking at anything in advance. You're running into the situation at the time of need. You or your parent or a spouse needs to go into a nursing home. You now get qualified advice. You didn't do advanced planning, but the situation's now knocking at your door, and now you get the qualified advice to make sure you do everything and take the right steps now. And they help guide you and get you to the right type nursing home. Now my next question is, as a financial planner, or your question to me as a financial planner would be, are any of these expenses tax deductible? Are any of these, etc., tax deductible? And I'll get into that in a minute, but me as a financial planner, I'd say, whoa. Where are you getting the money from that's going to be used to pay these expenses? You'll say, I don't know. My parents, they have an IRA, or your spouse or whoever says, I don't know, they have an IRA, an annuity, Social Security income, regular savings accounts, stocks and bonds. My question would be, has anyone talked to you about where is the smartest place to get the money first? And the reason I'm bringing it up is, back to my example of, you're out of luck on the $400,000. It doesn't work that way. When you get to the right facility, you don't commit, here's my $400,000. All they're asking you to do is pay the monthly bill, which might be $2,000 a month, $6,000 a month, $4,000 a month, $10,000 a month. It depends on what quality level of care the person needs. So if they're Alzheimer's and they'll wander away and they need help with all the activities of daily living, is what it's referred to, which is eating and bathing and dressing. Transferring means getting in and out of bed. Bathing, like I say, taking cognitive issues, which is remembering that we ate and remembering to take our pills and our medicines and all. If we can't do any of those, and the person is also disoriented where they're living in the past and maybe would wander out in the middle of the night. They need a skilled lockdown facility. That might be $9,000 or $10,000 a month. The person who may just need a little bit of help might only need to go into an assisted living center, which is referred to sometimes as even less than custodial care. 3 levels, 3 generally phrased levels of care would be custodial, intermediate, and skilled. So they may be even less than the custodial level, might only be $2,000 a month or $2,500 a month. That's just someone, maybe a facility providing the convenience of providing the meals, making sure they're taking their medicine, making sure they have facilities, So there are different levels. But the point I'm making is you don't blow your whole $400,000 all at once. First month of care, someone had to come up with the $4,500 a month is what it cost. Second month, there goes another $4,500 until it's all gone. The funds might last 6 years. What if the person in the nursing home only lasted 3 and then passed away? You didn't run out of money. They didn't run out of money. So you could see it's an ongoing chain of events on whether you might run out of money if the person lasts long enough, if they're in the nursing home and they last long enough to run out of money. That's the truth of how the situation typically works. I'm not talking about retirement communities. I'm talking about this situation of spending down once the time of care happens. And that's also spending down if the person's getting care in their own home. To prevent them from going into a nursing home, you might be providing care at home and using your own resources to pay for those care. So you have a caregiver at home coming 2 hours a week, 2 hours a day per week, 1 day a week, 2 days a week, whatever it is. So you're spending your own money, and that's called spending down. You lose money at the rate of spending down. If you have interest on your assets that you're not using for your own income, that exceeds the amount that you're spending for care, you may be okay. You might not even be eroding principal yet. If you have expenses for this type of care that exceed the level of income beyond what you needed, that you're already living on, your expenses exceed the leftover income, now you probably are beginning to erode principal, which further decreases the pot. And as the pot of money decreases, so does the rest of the other income that you were living on if you were drawing from it to live on. It is also shrinking now because the pot which was generating that income is shrinking. Do you see where I'm going here? So, if you're spending down, it's a gradual trickle, whether it's $10,000 a month trickle or $2,000 a month trickle, but it's a trickle of money that's coming out of your accounts. Now we get to the next question, the next 2 questions, which I'll probably get into on the next show, which are number 1, where do we take the money from? Number 2, where do we take the money from first? If you have a number of different choices, when we evaluate those, we evaluate the annuity, the stocks, the IRAs, the 401ks, your savings accounts. Where do we get the money from? You own a second home, you own an apartment building that you have rentals from, where's the best place to draw from first? If you have to cash something in and lose an asset, what about, is it capital gains tax you'll pay when you liquidate that asset? Or is it when you draw from the IRA, the whole amount's taxable as ordinary income? Are there tax planning strategies? Are the amounts that you're paying for the nursing home care tax deductible and can help offset? Is it subject to the 7.5% medical deduction, itemized deductions limit? The answer is, if it's fully deductible, maybe yes, maybe no. That's what we're going to get into on the next week's show. So we're going to get into the tax consequences and which type of asset, the consequences of drawing from one type of asset first versus another. Very complex area here, but we're going to develop into that on the next week's show. So I wanted to share this with you. We're into stage 3 of my long-term care planning series, which is quite a long series, but it's how difficult this area is in retirement planning, so I'm putting it out as a series. So next week when we come back, we will talk about some of those nuances. If you're going to tap your own individual resources, which resources matter. I'm not going to tell you which is best and which is worse to tap first, because every one of you are different. But I am going to try to share with you some differences on each types of assets you might have to know that there are differences, and then get to your qualified financial professionals and tax professionals and legal professionals, as I say on almost every show, to help you navigate these decisions that you have to make sure you're making at least the most cost-effective and efficient decisions based on your own circumstances and situations. All right, folks, I can't thank you enough for tuning in. We'll be back again next week, and we'll get back into more of this issue. Thanks again. See you next week.
You've been listening to All Things Financial with your friend with the answers to all financial matters, Jack Driscoll of Driscoll Insurance and Financial Services. Securities and investment advisory services offered through SagePoint Financial Incorporated, a registered broker-dealer and registered investment advisor and member FINRA and SIPC. Driscoll Insurance and Financial Services is not affiliated with SagePoint Financial, Inc. or registered as a broker, dealer, or investment advisor. You can reach Driscoll Insurance and Financial Services Incorporated at 412-833-1500, and they are located at 2738 South Park Road, Bethel Park, Pennsylvania, 15102.